Hello, I'm Sheila Rogers. I want to begin before I read my section by acknowledging that I live and work on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. I'm very grateful for their stewardship and their continued welcome to their land. I'm an honorary witness to the work of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I'm delighted to be able to read the section about TRC honorary witnesses. So here we go. TRC honorary witnesses. The mandate of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission describes reconciliation as an ongoing individual and collective process involving all the people of Canada. To help ensure that reconciliation will indeed be ongoing, even after the TRC's own official work is done, the Commissioners decided early on a public education and advocacy strategy to engage high-profile supporters, each willing to foster the continuing work of public education and dialogue. We called upon more than 70 of them across the country and internationally and inducted them as honorary witnesses in a public ceremony at each of the national events. Together they represent accomplished and influential leaders from all walks of life, now serving as ambassadors in educating the broader public about why reconciliation is necessary. Most of them, including some who had worked with Aboriginal people in the past, frankly admitted to their own prior gaps in knowledge and understanding of the residential school system and its continuing legacy. They now encourage the broader Canadian public to do what they have done, to learn and to be transformed in understanding and in commitment to societal change. Speaking at the Saskatchewan national event, TRC honorary witness and a former member of Parliament, the Honourable Tina Keeper, who's also a member of the Norway House Cree Nation, talked about the importance of honouring individual, family, and community relationships and memory, her own emotional involvement in the ratification of the settlement agreement, and the struggles surrounding Canada's apology. She underscored the strong contributions that Aboriginal peoples have to make to national healing and reconciliation. She said, "Yesterday was an incredible opportunity for me personally to let the tears flow, and they flowed all day long, and I didn't do that when I was in the House of Commons. I had the privilege of delivering the speech on behalf of the official opposition when the agreement was tabled in the House, and during that speech I had to stop midway and breathe because I didn't think I could do it. I kept thinking of my family and my extended family and my grandparents and so many of the people in the communities. Our cultures, our languages, our values and spiritual beliefs that have taken care of us at this gathering, they will become tools for the healing of a nation." At the Quebec national event, TRC honorary witness and a former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Paul Martin, reminded participants about the role that education played in the attempted destruction of Aboriginal families, communities, and nations, and the role it must play in repairing this damage. He said, "I've talked to a number of people here. Some of the members of Parliament are here, and the question we asked ourselves is, how come we didn't know what happened? I still can't answer that. Let us understand that what happened at the residential schools was the use of education for cultural genocide. Let's call a spade a spade. What that really means is that we've got to offer Aboriginal Canadians, without any shadow of a doubt, the best education system that is possible to have." Although some honorary witnesses already had significant knowledge of Aboriginal issues, including residential schools, through the act of witnessing survivors' testimonies, they learned about this history in a different way. At the Saskatchewan national event, a former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Joe Clark, said that the Saskatchewan national event gave him a better understanding of the intergenerational impacts of residential schools and a better sense of the challenges and opportunities for reconciliation with the rest of Canada. He said, "When I came to take my place this morning, I knew the storyline, if you will. I knew what had happened. I had some idea of the consequences, it being the residential school system involved, but I had no real idea because I had not been able to witness it before. The multi-generational emotion that is involved in what has happened to so many of the victims of the residential schools. Today I heard, we are only as sick as our secrets. That is an incentive to all that have kept these emotions and this history too secret, too long, to show the courage that so many of you have shown and let those facts be known. There are cross-cultural difficulties here as we seek reconciliation, the reconciliation of people who have not been part of this experience with those who have. We are going to deal with those cultural differences, but no one wants to be torn away from their roots. And there are common grounds here by which consensus can be built. Reconciliation means finding a way that brings together the legitimate concerns of the people in this room and the apprehensions, call them fear, that might exist elsewhere in the country. Among the things that we have to do is to ensure that not only the stories of abuse as they touch First Nations and Aboriginal people, but also the story of their contribution to Canada and the values that are inherent in those communities is much better known. Joe Clark's observations reinforce this Commission's view that learning happens in a different manner when life stories are shared and witnessed in ways that connect knowledge, understanding, and human relationships. He pinpointed a key challenge to reconciliation: how to bridge the divides between those who have been part of the residential school experience and those who have not, and between those who have participated in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's proceedings and those who have not. The former Minister of Indian Affairs and Northern Development, the late Honorable Andy Scott, was inducted as an honorary witness at the 2012 Atlantic National event in Halifax. He then served to welcome new inductees to the Honorary Witness Circle at the Saskatchewan National event and to reflect on his experience. His comments reinforce the Commission's conviction that relationship-based learning and ways of remembering lead to a deeper knowledge and understanding of the links between the survivors' experiences and community memory and our collective responsibility, and need to re-envision Canada's national history, identity, and future. He told us, "When I was invited to become an honorary witness, I thought I was prepared, having been involved in the settlement process and having already met and heard from survivors. I was not. In Halifax, I heard about not knowing what it meant to be loved, not knowing how to love. I heard about simply wanting to be believed that it happened, quote, just like I said. We heard about a deliberate effort to disconnect young children from who they are. We heard about a sense of betrayal by authority, government, community, and church. We heard about severe punishment for speaking one's language, living one's spirituality, seeking out one's siblings. We heard about forced feeding, physical and sexual abuse, and we heard about deaths. We heard about forgiving as a way to move on, and we heard from those who felt that they would never be able to forgive. I could not and cannot imagine being taken away to a strange place as a 5 or 6-year-old, never knowing why or for how long. Perhaps I remember most poignantly Ruth, who said simply, 'I never thought I'd talk about this, and now I don't think I'll ever stop. But Canada is big. I'll need some help.'" Andy Scott continued, "Reconciliation is about survivors speaking their experiences, being heard and being believed, but it's also about a national shared history. As Canadians, we must be part of reconciling what we have done collectively with who we believe we are. To do that with integrity and to restore our honor, we must all know the history so we can reunite these different Canadas." The Commission also heard from a variety of other Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal witnesses from many walks of life. Some were there on behalf of their institution or organization, some had close personal or professional ties to Aboriginal people, and others had. Many said that the experience opened their eyes and was powerfully transformative. They commented on how much they had learned by listening to survivors' life stories. This was true for both non-Aboriginal witnesses and Aboriginal witnesses whose own families had been impacted by the schools, but who may have had few opportunities to learn more about the residential schools themselves, especially in those many families where no one was yet willing or able to talk about it. At the 2011 Northern National event in Inuvik, Therese Boulard, then the director of the Northwest Territories Human Rights Commission, told us, "We need to have an accurate record of history. As long as there are some that are in denial of what really happened, As long as we don't have the full picture of what happened, we really can't move forward in that spirit of reconciliation. I want to acknowledge these stories as gifts, a hand towards reconciliation. I think it's amazing that after all that has passed, after all you've experienced, that you would be willing to share your pain with the rest of Canada in this spirit of openness and reconciliation, and in this faith that the Government of Canada and non-Aboriginal Canadians will receive them in a way that will lead to a better relationship in the future. That you have faith to share your stories in that spirit is amazing, and it's humbling, and it's inspiring, and I just want to thank the survivors for that. At the 2010 Manitoba National event, Janelle Jacquemin, a high school teacher from Winnipeg who served as a private statement gatherer at the event, said, "I was talking to a few students before I came this week to do this, and they said, 'Well, what do you mean there are survivors? That was a long time ago. That was hundreds of years ago.' To them, this is a page in a history book. So I'm blessed to have spent the past week sitting down one-on-one with survivors and listening to their stories. And I've heard horrific things and the emotions. It's been very hard to hear. But what every single person I've spoken to has said is that we are strong. And the strength is one thing that I'll carry with me when I leave." You carry on, and that's something I want to bring back to my classrooms. The strength of everyone that I spoke to and their stories. And it's so important for high school students and all students in Canada to be talking about this a lot more than they are. I just want to thank everyone involved for doing this, for educating me. I have a history degree in Canadian history. I learned more in the past 5 days about Canada than I have in 3 years of that degree. The Commission's 7 national events, by all accounts, provided a respectful space for public dialogue. Over 150,000 Canadians came out to participate in them, and in some 300 smaller-scale community events. One of the most common words used in describing them was transformational. It will be up to others to determine their long-term effectiveness and to judge this model's potential in terms of ongoing public education. However, as Commissioners of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, we are both confident and convinced that public dialogue is critical to the reconciliation process. And that's it. Thank you.